Hi, welcome to my video, and we're gonna talk about English literature history here, and we're gonna talk about several era in that history. So let's get started.
So for the Anglo-Saxon, that Britain's early years were dominated by the invaders. The first one who comes in the Britain, the first tribe is the Celts, and then the Romans came to inhabit Britain, and they bring a lot of influence to Britain history, less magical or mysterious, and more science such as economy and trading and organized government and anything else. And then after Romans, Anglo-Saxon inhabit England, and the main part of Britain was settled by the Angles and the Saxons, and took a new name as England, or what we know England. Anglo-Saxon is basis of English culture, or we can say that as Old English. In this period, tribe that invading England as the Angles and the Saxon from Germanic, we can call it Germany today, and then the Jutes that come from Denmark. But the Anglo is dominate here. And for this Anglo-Saxon, they live in tight community. They like to storytelling together, and they also believe in such as another creatures like monsters and another evil. So they created and used a wooden barricade to keep the mouth of the creatures. And then the society, the tribe focused on the between leaders and the followers, that was from God to king, from king to warrior, of them, and then to the slave. And then the religion of the tribe is mixed between the pagan and the Christian values. And the invading by the Vikings in 719, the new group invaders come to England. The Vikings, they are fearsome, seafarer, carry giant battles, eggs, and the Vikings from Denmark and Norway. And then the Vikings destroy a lot of things in England. That's the reason that we just have one story from Anglo-Saxon era. And the Norman conquest in 166. The Norman conquest ended Anglo-Saxon rule in England, and they lost their land, and the noble family fell into peasantry. That's how the Anglo-Saxon fall. And the literature in Anglo-Saxon era, from what I've got, is the literature in this era is all about epic heroes. We can see it in Beowulf. Beowulf is a story that made in 750 with the unknown authors. Although it was written in England, but the story took place in Scandinavia. It's around 500. And then we'll move to medieval era. The first one, the characteristic of it. So the characteristic of medieval era is it is located in Europe. And then the period in European history from the collapse of Roman civilization in the 5th century CE to the period of the Renaissance. And then it begins with the fall of the Roman Empire and ends at the beginning of the Renaissance. And it has 3 stages. And actually, this era have 3 stages. The first one is the High Middle Age, and the second is the Flat Middle Age, and the third one is the Late Middle Age. And it develops story of chivalry to promote the Christian value. And for the characteristic of the works in medieval era is, first, many of the works of medieval literature are by unknown authors. And the second is the themes of the text had moral, ethical, didactic contents of Christianity that were supervised by the church. And the third one is it developed lyrical and epic genre by strengthening the use of verse. And then the allegory. Allegory in this era is super used because the writers in this era is super allegory. Some of the most popular works of the period were very long and involved allegories. In fact, the French had the Romance of the Rose. And the fourth one is the Italian had Dante's Divine Comedy, and the English had William Langland's Fair's Plowman. Everyone want to get in this hot allegorical action. And the last one is romance. Love plays a central role in many medieval romances. Therefore, the authors and the works in medieval era, they are Geoffrey Chaucer with his works named The Canterbury Tales, and then there is John Gower with his Confessio Amatis, and then Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. And then now we are in the Renaissance era, and for the characteristic of this era is the noblest idea of the period were best expressed by the movement known as humanism. So humanism started growing from this era. And the second is the connected to humanist ideals was the literary doctrine of the imitation. Important for it's about this idea is about how literary work should be created. And the third is the most thing in the both literary creation and on modern life in general was the religious movement known as Reformation. And for the characteristic of the works in the Renaissance era is the first one is writers initiate a reaction against the orotund flow of serious Elizabethan prose that has been variously described as metaphysical, anti-Ciceronian, or Senecan, but these terms are used visually to denote both of cultivation of the cliff, aphoristic prose style, cut to the point of obscurity, and the passion for looseness, asymmetries, and open-endedness. And the second one is variety of splendid prose from historical chronicles, version of the Holy Scriptures, pamphlets, and literary criticism to the first English novels. And in this age, this age is the witness of the translation into English of several important foreign books. Many translations were as popular as the original work. For the authors and their works in the Renaissance era, in my explanation here, there are two parts of it. The first is the Renaissance era, Tudor 16th century in 1485 to 1603. They are Christopher Marlowe with his work The Passionate Shepherd to His Love, and then Edmund Spenser with his work The Faerie Queene, and the well-known William Shakespeare with Hamlet, Juliet, and Othello, who we know it well. And then the part 2 in English Renaissance is the Jacobean and Puritan era. It is in 1603 to 1660. There are John Milton with his famous work Paradise Lost, and then George Herbert from his work The Temple. So from the Renaissance era, we are here now in the Revolution and Restoration era. And for the characteristics of this era are the comedy of manners is theatrical genre that was over popular during the Restoration period. And the second one is the restoration of monarchy. King Charles I, King of England, established the Commonwealth of England in 1649, which brought about the end of monarchy. In 1660, Charles II, the son of executed king, returned from the France, where he had been hanging out exile, and was restored as a king of the England. So the restoration of monarchy and ascendance of Charles to the throne officially marked in the beginning of Restoration era. So Restoration era is about the restoration of the monarchy in England. Yeah. And the third one is the rejection of Puritans, where the Republicans under Oliver Cromwell, he was Puritan. Puritans were want everyone to lead very moral, upright, upstanding life, but there is rejection to Puritan in this era. And the characteristic of the works in this era, in Revolution and Restoration era, are the development of success. The writers in this period were used and developed the satire as a genre and style of writing. They are like to picking on people like rivals, political, religious figures, and even the entire social classes, to just showing how ridiculous they all were. And the second one is the use of a heroic couplet in this era by John Dryden. And then the third one is the influence of French literature. And the fourth one is the moderation, realism, and reason made the Restoration poetry style, also known as the classical school of poetry, dominate English literature for that period. So yeah, modernism, realism, and reason that dominate English literature poetry at that time. So who is the authors and the works that famous in Revolution and Restoration era? So let's get to know them. The first one is John Dryden. He was a versatile poet, and he also called as the king of Restoration literature period. And his work Absalom and Achitophel is a fine finished satire on contemporary political situation, and his best known dramatic works are Marriage à la Mode in 1672, and the second one is John Milton with his work Paradise Lost, and the third one is Opera Band, the one of the first professional woman writers, and she also worked as the spy for British government. Her work The Rover in the 1667 and the Orinoco in 1688.
And yeah, that's all about the era in the English literature history, and hope you understand it well. So yeah, that's all about my video. Thank you so much for your attention. Bye.